Holy shit, this is a long fucking article. Oh my god. The Mandate for Palestine was a League of Nations mandate for British administration of the territories of Palestine and Transjordan, both of which had been conceded by the Ottoman Empire following the end of World War I in 1918. The mandate was assigned to Britain by the San Remo Conference in April of 1920, after France's concession in the 1918 Clemenceau-Lloyd-George Agreement, the previously agreed international administration of Palestine under the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Transjordan was added to the mandate after the Arab kingdom in Damascus was toppled by the French in the Franco-Syrian War. Civil administration began in Palestine and Transjordan in July 1920 and April 1921, respectively, and the mandate was enforced from the 29th of September 1923 to the 15th of May 1948 to the 25th of May 1946, respectively. The mandate document was based on Article 22 of the Covenant of the League of Nations of the 28th of June 1919 and the Supreme Council of the Principal Allied Powers San Remo Resolution of the 25th of April 1920. The objective of the mandates over former territories of Ottoman Empire was to provide administrative advice and assistance by a mandatory until such time as they were able to stand alone. The border between Palestine and Transjordan was agreed in the final mandate document, and the approximate northern border with the French mandate for Syria and the Lebanon was agreed in the Paulet-Newcomb Agreement of the 23rd of December, 1920. Okay. In Palestine, the mandate required Britain to put into effect the Balfour Declaration's national home for the Jewish people, alongside the Palestinian Arabs who composed the vast majority of the local population. This requirement and others, however, would not apply to the separate Arab emirate to be established in Transjordan. The British controlled Palestine for almost 3 decades, overseeing a succession of protests, riots, and revolts between the Jewish and the Palestinian Arab communities. During the mandate, the area saw the rise of 2 nationalist movements, the Jews and the Palestinian Arabs. Intercommunal conflict in mandatory Palestine ultimately produced the 1936 to 1939 Arab Revolt in Palestine and the 1944 to 1948 Jewish insurgency in mandatory Palestine. The United Nations Partition Plan for Palestine was passed on the 29th of November 1947. This envisaged the creation of separate Jewish and Arab states operating under economic union, and with Jerusalem transferred to UN trusteeship. 2 weeks later, Colonel Secretary Arthur Creech Jones announced that the British mandate would end on the 15th of May 1948. On the last day of the mandate, the Jewish community there issued the Israeli Declaration of Independence. After the failure of the United Nations Partition Plan for Palestine, the 47-49 Palestine War ended, with mandatory Palestine divided among Israel, the Jordanian annexation of the West Bank, and the Egyptian All-Palestine Protectorate in the Gaza Strip. Okay. I want to do like every conflict. Is there a way to color the text? 1936 to 1939 Arab Revolt in Palestine. 1944 to 1948 Jewish insurgency in mandatory Palestine. You need CSS snippets? I can't like color this text red? Seriously? With Markdown, there's no way to... Hold on. Stop suggesting other programs, you fucking retard. You're getting a day ban. Stop. We're not going to play this game where... This is why I would never learn to code on stream. Every time I would ask a question, I'd be like, oh, why don't you switch to Python? Oh, why don't you switch to this? Oh, why don't... Please, fuck off. Kill yourself. Okay, Jesus. Options on the left side. Settings. Colored text. What's the easiest way to have colored text, please? CSS. I'm familiar with CSS. The context of web pages. Don't anything. Color text. Choice of fonts. CSS terms are probably the best solution. If you know CSS, you can use the developer console to target CSS elements. Obsidian uses Markdown. So there isn't built-in functionality for sub and subscripts. We could try MathJax, which is support natively. Oh, ugh, gross. Wait, options, appearance, settings, you mean? It doesn't look like you can. It's not supposed to natively support different colors. Obsidian add-ons are really easy to find and use. Obsidian add-on text color. There are slots for smart colors, which could be the status bar by default number of slots. Do you think this would be fine? For add-ons, go to the settings tab and go to the cog thing. Hold on, settings. Community plugins. File color, colored text. Oh shit, I just clicked the first fucking one. I don't care. I will click the first one and install it. Okay, fuck. How do we access this? Color text. Oh, based. Nice. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, these are presets down here. Cute. Oh. Cute, I see. Okay. So I select this, right click, boom. Okay. Is there a way to like turn on editing, but it doesn't auto expand? Actually, you know what? It doesn't matter much. Okay. Okay, just as a heads up, for when I glance back towards chat, if you're suggesting I use another program, it's a weak ban. If you're suggesting I click a link you have, it's a weak ban. If you're suggesting I research a different point, it's a weak ban. If you ask about Wikipedia, it's a weak ban. Fuck off. Fucking retards. Let me read, okay? Jesus fucking Christ. If you type the wrong emote, it's weak ban, okay? A popular uprising by Palestinian Arabs in Mandatory Palestine, which is a geopolitical entity established between 1920 and 1948 in the region of Palestine under the terms of the League of Nations Mandate for Palestine. During the First World War, an Arab uprising against the Ottoman Empire and the British Empire's Egyptian expeditionary force drove the Ottoman Turks out of the Levant. The United Kingdom had agreed in the McMahon Hussein Correspondence that it would honor Arab independence if the Arabs revolted against the Ottoman Turks, but in the end, the United Kingdom and France divided the area under the Sykes-Picot Agreement, an act of betrayal in the eyes of the Arabs. Further complicating the issue was the Balfour Declaration of 1917, in which Britain proposed or promised its support for the establishment of a Jewish national home in Palestine. Please fix the difference of color in the... Oh. How mad are you? Be honest. How fucking mad you are right now? Oh fuck! It's fucked now. I can't do it. What? Hello? Okay, there you go. The British achieved legitimacy by attaining a mandate from the League of Nations in June of 1922. One objective of the League of Nations mandate system was to administer areas of the defunct Ottoman Empire, until such time that they are able to stand alone. During the mandate, the area saw successive waves of Jewish immigration and the rise of nationalist movements in both the Jewish and Arab communities. Competing interests of the two populations led to the 1939 Arab revolt in Palestine and the 44 to 48 Jewish insurgency in Mandatory Palestine. The United Nations Partition Plan for Palestine to divide the territory into two states, one Arab and one Jewish, was passed in November of 1947. Am I able to like put pictures in Obsidian? Oh, Jesus, this isn't even an image. This is more complicated. Yeah, why do you have a fucking SVG file? Give me the fucking break. Okay, it's all right. Hold on, we can do this. Boom, boom. Gross. Oh my god, that's so gross. Oh. Yeah, fuck it. Oh my god, this formatting is so fucking ugly. Fuck it. Oh, actually. Map of Mandatory Palestine. Okay, fuck it. That's good enough. A popular uprising by Palestinian Arabs in Mandatory Palestine against the British administration, the Palestine Mandate, later known as the Great Revolt or the Great Palestinian Revolt, lasted from 1936 until 1939, demanding Arab independence and the end of the policy of open-ended Jewish immigration and land purchases, with the stated goal of establishing a Jewish national home. The uprising coincided with a peak in the influx of immigrant Jews, some 60,000 that year, and the Jewish population having grown under British auspices from 57,000 to 320,000 in 1935, and with the growing plight of the rural fellahin rendered landless, who, as they moved to metropolitan centers to escape their abject poverty, found themselves socially marginalized. Since 1920, Jews and Arabs had been involved in a cycle of attacks and counterattacks, and the immediate spark for the uprising was the murder of 2 Jews by a Qassemite band and the retaliatory killing by Jewish gunmen of 2 Arab laborers, incidents which triggered a flare-up of violence across Palestine. A month into the disturbances, Amin al-Husseini, president of the Arab Higher Committee and Mufti of Jerusalem, declared 16th of May 1936 as Palestine Day and called for a general strike. The revolt was branded by many in the Jewish Yeshuv as immoral and terroristic, often compared to fascism and Nazism. Ben-Gurion, however, described Arab causes as fear of growing Jewish economic power, opposition to mass Jewish immigration, and fear of the English identification with Zionism. General strike lasted from April to October of 1936. The revolt is often analyzed in terms of two distinct phases. The first phase was one of spontaneous popular resistance, which was only, in a second moment, seized on by the urban and elite Arab Higher Committee, which gave the movement an organized shape and was focused mainly on strikes and other forms of political protest in order to secure a political result. By October of 1936, this phase had been defeated by the British civil administration using a combination of political concessions, internal diplomacy involving the rulers of Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Transjordan, and Yemen, and the threat of martial law. The second phase, which began late 1937, was a peasant-led resistance movement provoked by British repression in 1936, in which increasingly British forces were targeted as the army itself increasingly targeted the villages it thought supportive of the revolt. During this phase, the rebellion was brutally suppressed by the British Army and the Palestine police force using repressive measures that were intended to intimidate the whole population and undermine popular support for the revolt. A more dominant role on the Arab side was taken by the Nashashibi clan, whose NDP party quickly withdrew from the rebel Arab Higher Committee, led by the radical faction of Amin al-Husseini, and instead sided with the British, dispatching Faisal al-Salam, the peace bands, in coordination with the British Army against nationalist and jihadist Arab facile units, literally bands. Destiny, I made a full visual timeline with pictures and articles on Obsidian. Please let me save you a massive amount of time. No! Stop! There's no point in you showing me all your fucking homework. Oh my god, please stop spamming. I don't care about your notes. The whole point is to do the reading research myself. I'm not gonna learn it if you just give me your whole thing. Please. Holy fuck, stop spamming in my chat. Jesus. My god. According to official British figures covering the whole revolt, the army and police killed more than 2,000 Arabs in combat, 108 were hanged, and 961 died because of what they described as gang and terrorist activities. And an analysis of the British statistics, Walid Khalidi estimates 19,792 casualties for the Arabs, with 5,032 dead, 3,832 killed by the British, and 1,200 dead due to intracommunal terrorism, and 14,760 wounded. By one estimate, 10% of the adult male Palestinian Arab population between 20 and 60 was killed, wounded, imprisoned, or exiled. Estimates of the number of Palestinian Jews killed are up to several hundred. The Arab revolt in Mandatory Palestine was unsuccessful, and its consequences affected the outcome of the 1948 Palestine War. It caused the British mandate to give crucial support to pre-state Zionist militias like the Haganah, whereas on the Palestinian Arab side, the revolt forced the flight into exile of the main Palestinian Arab leader of the period, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Haj Amin al-Husseini. Oh, fuck. This lost my... Popular uprising by Palestinian Arabs in Mandatory Palestine against British mandate due to increasing immigration of Jewish immigrants, I guess. Increasing flow of Jewish immigrants. Sparked by back and forth killings of two Jewish gunmen and cycle in the immediate spark for the arrest and murder of two Jewish and the retaliatory killings by Jewish gunmen of two Arab laborers. Of two Jews by a Qasimite band followed by the retaliatory killing of 2 Arab workers. Does he not look at the YouTube chat much? No, when I'm in research mode, you guys just sit there and entertain yourselves while I do this shit, okay? Stay mad. Movement was seized upon by the urban and elitist Arab Higher Committee, which made the revolt focus on strikes and other political forms of protest. We'll say first part of movement. Okay, first part of movement. The second phase in 1937 led to violent conflict between British Army and Palestine police force against the revolters, against the peasant-led resistance movement, I guess. All right. I should probably record like total casualties and stuff. I feel like I should record names of people too. Because this Amin al-Husseini might pop up some. Maybe? No, we'll see. Walid Khalidi estimates 19,792 casualties for the Arabs, with 5,032 dead. Are dead included in casualties or not normally? 3,832 killed by the British and 1,200 dead due to... Yes, they are? Okay. And 1,200 dead due to intra-communal terrorism? Casualty means dead or injured, okay. So like you would never have like 1,000 dead and 500 casualties, right? It would be like 1,500 casualties, right? Terrorism. 14,760 wounded. Several hundred Palestinian Jews were killed. Don't know if I need all of this background for everything, but... General strikes have been used in neighboring Arab countries to place political pressures on Western colonial powers. In Iraq, a general strike in July of 1931, accompanied by organized demonstrations in the streets, led to independence for the former British Mandate territory under Prime Minister Nuri as-Said, I think. The full membership of the League of Nations in October of 1932. The Syrian national movement had used a general strike from the 20th January to the 6th of March in 1936, which, despite harsh reprisals, brought about negotiations in Paris that led to a Franco-Syrian Treaty of Independence. This showed that determined economic and political pressure could challenge a fragile imperial administration. What? On the 16th of October 1935, a large arms shipment camouflaged in cement bins comprising 25 Lewis guns and their bipods, 800 rifles, and 400,000 rounds of ammunition, destined for the Haganah, was the main Zionist paramilitary organization that operated for the Yishuv in the British Mandate for Palestine. How do you pronounce this? There's no way.
Did you know that before there was an official Israeli army, there were actually 3 underground Jewish militias? Yeah, they were the Haganah, the Irgun, and the Lehi.
Haganah. Cool, okay. Well, Jaywalkie, thanks for subbing, buddy. Was discovered during unloading at the port of Jaffa. The news sparked Arab fears of a Jewish military takeover of Palestine. A little over 2 weeks later, on the 2nd of November 1935, Al-Qassam gave a speech in the port of Haifa? Denouncing the Balfour Declaration on its 18th anniversary. In a proclamation to that effect, together with Jamal al-Husseini, he alluded to the Haganah weapon smuggling operation. Questioned at the time by a confidant about his preparations, he stated that he had 15 men, each furnished with a rifle and 1 cartridge. Soon after, perhaps fearing a pending preemptive arrest, he disappeared with his group into the hills, not to start a revolution, premature at that point, but to impress upon people that he was a man ready to do what he said should be done. Some weeks later, a Jewish policeman was shot dead in a citrus grove while investigating the theft of grapefruit after he happened to come close to the Qassamites' encampment. Following the incident, the Palestine police launched a massive manhunt and surrounded Al-Qassam in a cave just north of Yabad. In the ensuing battle on the 20th of November, Al-Qassam was killed. The death of Al-Qassam generated widespread outrage among Palestinian Arabs, galvanizing public sentiment with an impact similar to the effect of the Yishuv news of the death of Joseph Trumpeldor in 1920 at the Tel Hai settlement. Huge crowds gathered for the occasion of his obsequies in Haifa, and later burial in Balad al-Sheikh. The actual uprising was triggered some 5 months later, on the 15th of April 1936, by the Anabta shooting, where remnants of a Qasmite band stopped a convoy on the road from Nablus to Talkarm, robbed its passengers, and, stating that they were acting to revenge Al-Qassam's death, shot 3 Jewish passengers, 2 fatally, after ascertaining their identity. One of the 3, Israel Chazan, was from Thessaloniki. The Salonican community's request that permission be granted to allow them to conduct a solemn funeral for Chassan was turned down by the district commissioner, who had allowed Al-Qassam a ceremonial burial some months earlier. The refusal sparked a demonstration by 30,000 Jews in Tel Aviv, who overcame the police and maltreated Arab laborers and damaged property in Jaffa. That's Greece. Wow, cool. The following day, 2 Arab workers sleeping in a hut and a banana plantation beside the highway between Petah Tikva and Yarkona were assassinated in retaliation by members of the Haganah Bet. Jews and Palestinians attacked each other in and around Tel Aviv. Palestinians in Jaffa rampaged through a Jewish residential area, resulting in several Jewish deaths. After 4 days, by the 19th of April, the deteriorating situation erupted into a set of countrywide disturbances. An Arab general strike and revolt ensued that lasted until October 1936. Arab general strike and armed insurrection, April to October of 1936. The strike began on the 19th of April in Nablus, where... Can I find these cities still, or are they like renamed now? Nablus, okay. The strike began on the 19th of April in Nablus, where an Arab National Committee was formed. By the end of the month, national committees had been formed in all of the towns and some of the larger villages. On the same day, the High Commissioner Washoop issued emergency regulations, the legal basis for suppressing the insurgency. On the 21st of April, the leaders of the 5 main parties accepted the decision at Nablus and called for a general strike of all Arabs engaged in labor, transport, and shopkeeping for the following day. While the strike was initially organized by workers and local committees, under pressure from below, political leaders became involved to help with coordination. This led to the formation on the 25th of April 1936 of the Arab Higher Committee. The committee resolved to continue the general strike until the British government changes its present policy in a fundamental manner. The demands were threefold: the prohibition of Jewish immigration, the prohibition of the transfer of Arab landed Jews, and the establishment of a national government responsible to a representative council. About 1 month after the general strike started, the leadership group declared a general non-payment of taxes and explicit opposition to Jewish immigration. In the countryside, armed insurrection started sporadically, becoming more organized over time. One particular target of the rebels was the Mosul-Haifa oil pipeline of the Iraq Petroleum Company, constructed only a few years earlier to Haifa from a point of the Jordan River south of Lake Tiberias. This was repeatedly bombed at various points along its length. Other attacks were on railways, including trains, and on civilian targets such as Jewish settlements, secluded Jewish neighborhoods in the mixed cities, and Jews both individually and in groups. During the summer of that year, thousands of Jewish farmed acres and orchards were destroyed. Jewish civilians were attacked and murdered, and some Jewish communities, such as those in Basin and Acre, fled to safer areas. Measures taken against the strike were harsh from the outset and grew harsher as the revolt deepened. Unable to contain the protest with the 2 battalions already stationed in the country, Britain inundated Palestine with soldiers from regiments all over the empire, including its Egyptian garrison. The drastic measures taken included house searches without warrants, night raids, preventative detention, caning, flogging, deportation, confiscation of property, and torture. As early as May of 1936, the British formed armed Jewish units equipped with armored vehicles to serve as auxiliary police. Look at the map, see where these cities are. I don't think it matters much. This is going to be all scattered probably through mandated Palestinian territory, right? Or mandatory Palestine, I guess. As early as May 1936, the British formed armed Jewish units equipped with armored vehicles to serve as auxiliary police. The British government in Palestine was convinced that the strike had the full support of the Palestinian Arabs, and they could see no weakening in the will and spirit of the Arab people. Air Vice Marshal Richard Pearce, commander of the British forces in Palestine and Transjordan from 1933 to 1936, reported that because the rebel armed bands were supported by villagers, it was quickly evident that the only way to regain the initiative from the rebels was by initiating measures against the villagers from which the rebels and saboteurs came. I therefore initiated, in cooperation with the Inspector General of Police RGB Spicer, village searches. Ostensibly, these searches were undertaken to find arms and wanted persons. Actually, the measures adopted by the police on the lines of similar Turkish methods were punitive and effective. Jesus Christ. Poor Ethan, dude. Is getting savaged on fucking Twitter. Oh, this one person, this Hayat twit person is fucking wild. I see this person tweet so much disgusting shit. Holy fuck, this person is like an actual terrorist. I apologize for caring about Israel and Jewish people. I lived in Israel for 5 years. My wife is Israeli. My kids, my wife's entire family. Of course, I have a bias to nearly everyone I love is affected by this. If you're incapable of understanding that, if this post enrages you, then I'm afraid you are nothing more than an unwitting conduit of Hamas propaganda, blah, blah, blah. Does he think Hamas is going to come from in his $8 million house in LA? This all started because he got triggered about something that was said in a Discord channel, LeMayo. Personally, I think there's bigger issues, but that's just me. God, I hate this person. That female doctor from Denmark is worse? I don't even know what you're talking about. This person is horrible, though. Jesus. Oh, is this the one with the GoFundMe for the moving house? It might be for moving, yeah. Oh, I was gonna bring this up. Okay, I'm trying not to. I have to be very careful when I talk about her because Pearl's just been trying to like farm attention for me hard. I think she was hoping that I would fight against her because of all the last shit she's been saying on Twitter against me. She finally made the YouTube video she's been working on. Adam22 and Destiny forgot that they're irrelevant. 1.84 million subscribers. Video posted 20 hours ago, 9,654 views. Holy shit. How fucking sad. That channel is so fucking dead. In reality, the measures created a sense of solidarity between the villagers and the rebels. The pro-government mayor of Nablus complained to the High Commissioner that during the last searches effected in villages, properties were destroyed, or during the last searches effected in villages, properties, during the last searches effected in villages, properties were destroyed, jewels stolen, and the Holy Quran torn, and this has increased the excitement of the Felahin. And they are a peasant, usually a farmer, agricultural worker in the Middle East and North Africa. The word derives from the Arabic word for plowman. Wow, Z8RZ, thanks for hosting me with 6 viewers. However, Mosh Shertok and the Jewish agency even suggested that all villages in the area of an incident should be punished. On June 2nd, an attempt by rebels to derail a train bringing the 2nd Battalion, Bedfordshire, and the Hertfordshire Regiment from Egypt led to the railways being put under guard, placing a great strain on the security forces. On the 4th of June, in response to the situation, the government rounded up a large number of Palestinian leaders and sent them to a detention camp in Aja al-Hafir in the Negev Desert. The Battle of Ner Shams on the 21st of June marked an escalation in the largest engagement of British troops against Arab militants so far during the revolt. Okay. All right, we don't need all of this. For the revolt in Palestine, and then there was a 1944 to 1948 Jewish insurgency in Mandatory Palestine. Let me play. I need musics. Wait, don't I have a different playlist now? Jesus Christ. Oh, thank God. I don't know what of these will get me hit for copyright, so good luck. Let's see. Jewish insurgency and Mandatory Palestine. Okay. A successful paramilitary campaign was carried out by Zionist underground groups against British rule in Mandatory Palestine from 1944 to 1948. The tensions between the Zionist underground and the British mandatory authorities rose from 1938 and intensified with the publication of the White Paper of 1939. This was a policy paper issued by the British government led by Neville Chamberlain in response to the 36 to 39 Arab revolt in Palestine. After its formal approval in the House of Commons on the 23rd of May, 1939, it acted as the governing policy for Mandatory Palestine from 39 to the 48 British departure. After the war, the mandate was referred to the United Nations. Policy first drafted in 1939 was for the British government unilaterally. Wait, I'm so confused. So did the White Paper of 39 was still under the mandate for Palestine? Oh, okay, never mind. That makes sense, I guess. White Paper of 1939 enacted until the end of British mandated rule, I guess. Paper called for the establishment of a Jewish national home and an independent Palestinian state. Within 10 years, rejected the Peel Commission's idea of partitioning Palestine. It also limited Jewish immigration to 75,000 for 5 years and ruled that further immigration would then be determined by the Arab majority. Jews were restricted from buying Arab land in all but 5% of the mandate. The proposal did not meet the political demands proposed by Arab representatives during the London conference and was officially rejected by the representatives of Palestine Arab parties who were acting under the influence of Haj Amin Effendi Al-Husseini, Jesus, but the more moderate Arab opinion that was represented by the National Defense Party was prepared to accept the White Paper. Ouch. They probably should have accepted this, huh? Zionist groups in Palestine immediately rejected the White Paper and led a campaign of attacks on government property that lasted for several months. On the 18th of May, a Jewish general strike was called. Regulations on land transfers and clauses restricting immigration were implemented, but at the end of the 5 years in 1944, only 51,000 of the 75,000 immigration certificates provided for had been used. In light of this, the British offered to allow immigration to continue beyond the cutoff date of 44 at a rate of $1,500 per month. Oh, man. Okay. This is kind of important, I think. The White Paper of 1939. Called for the establishment of a Jewish national home in an independent Palestinian state. That would have been a one-state solution, with the Jews living inside of an independent Palestinian state, right? Within 10 years, limited Jewish immigration to 75,000 for 5 years and allowed Arab majority to determine future Jewish immigration. Jews were restricted from buying Arab land in all but 5% of the mandate. The Palestinian Arab parties acting under Haj Amin Effendi al-Husseini rejected this proposal. I'd say, but probably should have accepted. That's an opinion. Opinions can be, what, blue, I guess? Right-click, color text. Al-Husseini, the Mufti, rejected it because he would be unable to return from exile in Lebanon. Wait, really? The London Conference. That's where they rejected it at, right? Hold on. During the London... Well, let's find out. I guess read more. In February of 1939, the British called the London Conference to negotiate an agreement between Arabs and Jews in Palestine. The Arab delegates attended on the condition that they would not meet directly with the Jewish representatives, which would constitute recognition of Jewish claims over Palestine. The British government, therefore, held separate meetings with the two sides. The conference ended in failure on March 17th. In the wake of World War II, the British believed that Jewish support was either guaranteed or unimportant. However, the government feared hostility from the Arab world. That geopolitical consideration was, in Raoul Hilberg's word, decisive to British policy since Egypt, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia were independent and allied with Britain. The London Conference. Control F. Husseini. 5 prominent Palestinians, including Yaqub al-Hussein, okay, and 3 members of the agency were deported to the remaining members of the agency were either already out of the country, like this guy, went into hiding and then exiled over the summer. Amin. Oh, what does the al before Hussein means? Or al, like al Hussein, al Muhammad, al Husseini. Like, what is that? What does the al mean? Al? Is there like a thing in? Of? Oh, gotcha. Okay, the Arabs' counteroffer was... That's probably worth it, too. Fuck, how would I organize this? They wanted independence, no Jewish national home in Palestine, replacement of the mandate by a treaty, and the end of Jewish immigration. Al is the Muslim version of the Jewish Ben. It means son of. Okay. Jesus. After the delegations had left London, the British made a further attempt to get Arab approval by suggesting a faster transfer of power conditional on an end of violence and the involvement of the League of Nations if conditions were unsuitable for independence after 10 years. In May, the HNC delegation announced its rejection of the White Paper, with Amin Husseini imposing the decision on the majority of delegates that were in favor of accepting. That tactical blunder did not help the Arab National Council in any way. It has been suggested that he had to refuse to deal with the British to maintain his leadership of the actual rebels in Palestine. Oh, so maybe they actually should have accepted then, maybe? Al does not mean son of. IBN or bin means son of. Oh, well. Your chat is gaslighting you. Okay. White Paper of 1939. Okay. And intensified with publication of the White Paper of 1939. The paper outlined new government policies to place further restrictions on Jewish immigration and land purchases, and declared the intention of giving independence to Palestine with an Arab majority within 10 years. Though World War II brought relative calm, tensions again escalated into an armed struggle towards the end of the war, when it became clear that the Axis powers were close to defeat. Okay, so and then obviously Jewish people are not happy because the White Paper is basically fucking them over hard inside this new potential Palestinian state. The Haganah, the Haganah, is it Haganah? I forgot. Haganah, the largest of the Jewish underground militias, which was under the control of the officially recognized Jewish leadership of Palestine, remained cooperative with the British, but in 1944, the Irgun, an offshoot of the Haganah, launched a rebellion against British rule, thus joining Lehi. I think that video just mentioned the three of these, which had been active against the authorities throughout the war. Both were small dissident militias of the right-wing revisionist movement. They attacked police and government targets in response to British immigration restrictions. The armed conflict escalated during the final phase of World War II when the Irgun declared a revolt in February of 1944, ending the hiatus in operations it had begun in 1940. The armed conflict escalated during the final phase of World War II when the Irgun declared a revolt in February of 1944, ending the hiatus. Okay, when did Japan surrender World War II? Japan surrender World War II. That's considered like, is Japan surrender considered like that is the ending date of World War II? September 2nd, 1945. Is this like, or was there like random shit going on after that? That is the end of World War II. Okay. Starting from the assassination of Baron Moyne. Okay, hold on. Genuine question. Are you researching the Israel-Palestine history out of genuine interest? Asking because I thought you said distant history was largely irrelevant in modern conflicts. When the black kid you were on Jubilee with kept bringing up the KKK was founded by Democrats. Please don't be it's. I don't know if it's necessarily relevant to the modern conflict, but learning anything is nice just because it helps you, like, everything is connected, okay? So it's nice to, like, learn everything. The more you know, the more things plug into each other. Literally every single thing in this universe is connected to itself because we all live in the same universe. So It's just having a background and everything is nice to have. It also helps you refute certain arguments that might be easily refuted, and it's just good to know. There's literally no downside, okay? Oh, wait, hold on. Good one. Rapper 433. Get banned. Okay. We should, on our breaks, every hour we should do 5-minute link breaks to keep you guys, your brain stimulated. The armed conflict escalated during the final phase of World War II when the Irgun declared a revolt in February of 1944. Starting from the assassination of Baron Moyne by Leahy in 1944, the Haganah actively opposed the Irgun and Leahy in a period of inter-Jewish fighting known as the hunting season, effectively halting the insurrection. However, in autumn of 1945, following the end of World War II in both Europe and Asia, when it became clear that the British would not permit significant Jewish immigration and had no intention of immediately establishing a Jewish state, the Haganah began a period of cooperation with the other two underground organizations. Oh, they all came to work together. Cute. Jesus, okay. They jointly formed the Jewish Resistance Movement. The Haganah refrained from direct confrontation with British forces and concentrated its efforts on attacking British immigration control, while Irgun and Leahy attacked military and police targets. The resistance movement dissolved amidst recriminations in July of 1946 following the King David Hotel bombing. The Irgun and Leahy started acting independently, while the main underground militia, Haganah, continued acting mainly in supporting Jewish immigration. The Haganah, is it Haganah or Haganah? Haganah? I don't remember. Again, briefly worked to suppress Irgun and Leahy operations due to the presence of a United Nations investigative community in Palestine. After the UN Partition Plan resolution was passed on the 29th of November 1947, the civil war between... The civil war between Palestinian Jews and Arabs eclipsed the previous tensions of both with the British. However, British and Zionist forces continued to clash throughout the period of the Civil War up to the termination of the British Mandate for Palestine and the Israeli Declaration of Independence on the 14th of May, 1948. Haganah. Okay. Within the United Kingdom, there were deep divisions over Palestine policy. Dozens of British soldiers, Jewish militants, and civilians died during the campaigns of insurgency. The conflict led to heightened anti-Semitism in the United Kingdom. In August of 1947, after the hanging of 2 abducted British sergeants, there was widespread anti-Jewish rioting across the United Kingdom. The conflict caused tensions in the United Kingdom and the United States relations. Wait, really? Why are you doing this? There we go. Okay. Let's see. The Haganah, Irgun, or the Haganah, Irgun, and Leahy all joined together to form the Jewish Resistance Movement. Insurgent activities in the area were in response to the proposed 1939 White Paper. Let's look up the king in July of 1946. Let's look this up. The King David Hotel bombing. The British administrative headquarters for Mandatory Palestine, housed in the southern wing. Oh, it's Leahy? The British administrative headquarters for Mandatory Palestine, housed on the southern wing of the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, were bombed in a terrorist attack on July 22nd, 1946 by the militant right-wing Zionist underground organization, the Irgun, during the Jewish insurgency. 91 people of various nationalities were killed, including Arabs, Britons, and Jews, and 46 were injured. Jesus. In July, on 22nd of July, 1946, the Irgun bombed the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, leading to the deaths of 96 or 91 people of various nationalities. The hotel was the site of the central offices of the British Mandatory Authorities of Palestine, principally this hotel was the headquarters for Mandatory Palestine. Hello? When planned, the attack at the approval of the Haganah, the principal Jewish paramilitary group in Palestine, though unbeknownst to the Irgun, this had been cancelled by the time the operation was carried out. The main motive of the bombing was to destroy documents incriminating the Jewish agency in attacks against the British, which were obtained during Operation Agatha, a series of raids by Mandate authorities. It was the deadliest attack directed at the British during the Mandate era. That's important to know. Was the deadliest attack against the British during the entire Mandate era. It would be 1920 to 1948. Disguised as Arab workmen and as hotel waiters, members of the Irgun planned to bomb in the basement of the main building of the hotel, whose southern wing housed the Mandate Secretariat and a few offices of the British military headquarters. I feel like if you knew this history, I feel like 9/11 truthers should use this. Like, Jews have already done this type of sneaking in and planting bombs. Oh.
What?
Why are you slamming doors all over the place?
What are you doing?
Controversy has arisen over the timing and adequacy of any warnings. The Irgun stated subsequently that warnings were delivered by telephone. Thurston Clark states the first warning was delivered by a 16-year-old recruit to the hotel switchboard 15 minutes before the explosion. The British government said after the inquest that no warning had been received by anyone at the Secretariat and an official position with any power to take action. The Irgun committed the attack in response to Operation Agatha, known in Israel as Black Saturday. British troops had searched the Jewish agency on June 29th and confiscated large quantities of documents directly implicating the Haganah in the Jewish insurgency against Britain. The intelligence information was taken to the King David Hotel, where it was initially kept in the offices of the Secretariat of the Southern Wing. Jesus. Okay. Within the United Kingdom, there were deep divisions over Palestine policy. Dozens of British soldiers, Jewish militants, and civilians died during the campaigns of insurgency. Okay. Background between the world wars. Although both the 1917 Balfour Declaration and the terms of the League of Nations British Mandate of Palestine called for a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, the British did not accept any linkage between Palestine and the situation of European Jews. After the Nuremberg Laws of 1935, many German Jews sought refuge abroad, and by the end of 1939, some 80,000 had been given refuge in Great Britain itself. In 1936 to 1937, soon after the start of the Arab uprising in Palestine, Earl Peel led a commission to consider a solution. The Peel Commission proposed a partition of Palestine that involved the compulsory resettlement of some Arab and Jewish inhabitants. It was not acceptable either to the Arab or to the Jewish leaders, though David Ben-Gurion remarked in 1937, the compulsory transfer of the Arabs from the valleys of the proposed Jewish state could give us something which we had never had, even when we stood on our own during the days of the First and Second Temples. The 20th Zionist Congress resolved in August of 1937 that the partition plan proposed by the Peel Commission is not to be accepted, but it wished to carry on negotiations in order to clarify the exact substance of the British government's proposal for the foundation of a Jewish state in Palestine. A further attempt was made in the Woodhead Commission, also known as the Palestine Partition Commission, whose report was published in late 1938. A government statement followed on the 11th of November 1938 and concluded that His Majesty's government, after careful study of the Partition Commission's report, have reached the conclusion that his further examination has shown that the political, administrative, and financial difficulties involved in the proposal to create independent Arab and Jewish states inside Palestine are so great that the solution of the problem is impractical. The brief St. James Conference followed in early of 1939. Okay. This essentially died down in... Well, I guess eventually we're going to get Israel declaring itself a state, huh? You both are evil, goodbye. Okay, thanks. Mark is having a moment right now. Jesus. Okay. Where are we? Okay, back here. The United Nations Partition Plan for Palestine was passed on the 29th of November 1947. This envisaged the creation of separate Jewish and Arab states operating under economic union and with Jerusalem transferred to UN trusteeship. 2 weeks later, Colonel Secretary Arthur Creech Jones announced that the British mandate would end on the 15th of May 1948. On the last day of the mandate, the Jewish community there issued the Israeli Declaration of Independence. After the failure of the UN Partition Plan for Palestine, the 47-49 Palestine War ended with mandatory Palestine divided among Israel, the Jordanian annexation of the West Bank, and the Egyptian all-Palestine protectorate in the Gaza Strip. Let's see, what did the UN partition plan look like? The United States partition plan for Palestine was a proposal by the United Nations, which recommended a partition of mandatory Palestine at the end of the British mandate. Oh God. Is the entire history of this region going to be Palestinians like refusing offers over and over and over and over and over again that would have been so much better than where they are now? Oh no. Bro. Damn. Sorry, we're not going to pre-watch history. You said a few minutes ago that knowledge is going to everything's connected, but a while ago I asked if you would play Geotastic or a similar geography game, and you said something like how you only cared about America and nothing outside matters. I get that you were joking, but do you think you will play it sometime in the future? I don't know. Here is Abbas saying so himself, LOL.
Time 1947, there was the resolution 181, the partition plan, Palestine and Israel. Israel existed, Palestine diminished. Why?
Maybe because Israel is accepted and Palestinians and Arabs...
I know.
Maybe you're correcting this mistake?
It was our mistake. It was our mistake. It was the Arab mistake as a whole.
To be fair, I will qualify. I don't know anything about the quality of any of this land. It might be the case here that the Jewish land that's being highlighted here is of way more quality than the Arab land, maybe. Like maybe the access to it's the Mediterranean, right? I fucking suck at fucking sea names. Yeah. Maybe access to the Mediterranean is better, like on that particular land versus like the Gaza and up here. Maybe I don't. I'm saying it's possible. I'm just saying I don't know 100%. But the stuff in the south is shit, but the land on the West Bank is good. Oh, so then maybe it's the exact opposite. Also, having exclave sucks. What's an exclave? The opposite of an enclave? Oh, non-continuous land. I agree with that. Are there any countries in the world right now anywhere that have non-continuous land? Russia. Oh, the US technically does. Alaska. Azerbaijan. Oh, okay, apparently there's a lot. Ah, fuck it. Alright, yeah. I mean, it works. There's, yeah. Okay, apparently lots of places. Let's see. So we can call this 1947. Well, we can call this November 29th, 1947. The United Nations partition plan for Palestine, or Resolution 181. Resolution. Hello, Destiny. I just posted something on your subreddit regarding a theory I've been developing, which has its own unique label. Actual schizo post. Okay, good for you. 2. The second version, I guess? Okay. Destiny, watch Michaela Peterson interview of opposing views with Norman Finkelstein and David Brogg for a good summary. I'm good. Okay. You do understand that you have to consider the time itself to understand if this is a good deal then for the Palestinians, right? Do you understand that the West Bank is an agreement? What's going on there? What? Destiny, is there any way that you can share your Obsidian notes? That way we can look at it in depth. Bro, my notes are... I'm not even taking the best notes right now. Just chill, okay? Wait, what the fuck is this? Okay. The petition plan A4. Okay. The resolution recommended the creation of independent Arab and Jewish states and a special international regime for the city of Jerusalem. The petition plan, a 4-part document attached to the resolution, provided for the... Okay, let's... a 4-part document. The partition plan was attached that provided for the termination of the mandate, the withdrawal of British armed forces, and the delineation boundaries between the 2 states and Jerusalem. Boom. Boom, boom. Okay. And Jerusalem. Part 1 of the plan stipulated that the mandate would be terminated as soon as possible and the United Kingdom withdraw no later than the 1st of August of 1948. The new states would come into existence 2 months after the withdrawal, but no later than the 1st of October 1948. The plan sought to address the conflicting objectives and claims of two competing movements, Palestinian nationalism and Jewish nationalism, or Zionism. The plan also called for economic union between the proposed states and for the protection of religious and minority rights. While Jewish organizations collaborated with UNSCOP, or UNSCOP, during the deliberations, the Palestinian Arab leadership boycotted it. The proposed plan is considered to have been pro-Zionist by its detractors, with 56% of the land allocated to the Jewish state, despite the Palestinian Arab population numbering twice the Jewish population. Consequently, the partition plan was accepted by Jewish Agency for Palestine and most Zionist factions. The Arab Higher Committee, the Arab League, and other Arab leaders and governments rejected it on the basis that in addition to the Arabs forming a two-thirds majority, they owned a majority of the lands. They also indicated an unwillingness to accept any form of territorial division, arguing that it violated the principles of national self-determination of the UN Charter, which granted people the right to decide their own destiny. They announced their intention to take all necessary measures to prevent the implementation of the resolution. Subsequently, a civil war broke out in Palestine, and the plan was not implemented. The Arab Higher Committee and the Arab League rejected this proposal due to the fact that 56% of the land would be allocated to the Jewish state, despite the Palestinian Arab population numbering twice that of the Jewish population. The Jewish population, or what? Who is representing the Jewish organizers? The Jewish Agency for Palestine and most Zionist factions accepted. Jewish counterargument to the population argument is that the ton of land that you got was useless desert. Oh, maybe, okay. British administration was formalized by the League of Nations under the Palestine Mandate in 1923 as part of the partition of the Ottoman Empire following World War I. The mandate reaffirmed the 1970 British commitment to the Balfour Declaration for the establishment of Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, with the prerogative to carry it out. A British census of 1918 estimated 700,000 Arabs and 56,000 Jews. In 1937, following a 6-month-long Arab general strike and armed insurrection. Oh, that was the Arab revolt in Palestine from 36 to 39. Proposed partition. The report of the majority of the committee envisaged the division of Palestine into 3 parts: an Arab state, a Jewish state, and the city of Jerusalem, linked by extraterritorial crossroads. The proposed Arab state would include the central and part of western Galilee with the town of Acre, the hill country of Samaria and Judea, an enclave at Jaffa, and the southern coast stretching from north of Istud and encompassing what is now the Gaza Strip, with a section of desert along. The land was divided based on whom the majority was in certain areas. So while Palestinians were the majority throughout the entire land, a lot of the local areas was majority Jewish, rural mostly. That's from Jonathan Liriano for $10. The primary objectives of the majority of the committee were political division and economic unity between the two groups. The plan tried its best to accommodate as many Jews as possible into the Jewish state. In many specific cases, this meant including areas of Arab majority, but with a significant Jewish minority in the Jewish state. Thus, the Jewish state would have an overall large Arab minority Areas that were sparsely populated, like the Negev Desert, were also included in the Jewish state to create room for immigration. According to the plan, Jews and Arabs living in the Jewish state would become citizens of the Jewish state, and Jews and Arabs living in the Arab state become citizens of the Arab state. By virtue of Chapter 3, Palestinian citizens residing in Palestine outside of the city of Jerusalem, as well as Arabs and Jews who, not holding Palestinian citizenship, resided in Palestine outside the city of Jerusalem, would, upon the recognition of independence, become citizens of the state in which they were resident and enjoy full civil and political rights. The plan would have had the following demographics based on data in 1945. The land allocated to the Arab state in the final plan included 43% of mandatory Palestine and consisted of all the highlands, except for Jerusalem, plus 1/3 of the coastline. What is a highland? Does that mean like non-swampy area? Is that what that means? Or... The highlands contain the major aquifers of Palestine, which supplied water to the coastal cities of central Palestine, including Tel Aviv. The Jewish state allocated to the citation needed. Okay. The Jewish state allocated the Jews, who constituted 1/3 of the population and owned about 7% of the land, was to receive 56% of the mandatory Palestine, a slightly larger area to accommodate the increasing numbers of Jews who could immigrate there. The Jewish state included 3 fertile lowland plains. Nick Crowley's vid on Tomorrow's Pioneers has all the info you need. In season 4, they reenact a self-minecrafting of a woman and had her kids react to it and encourage them to do the same. Thank you for the 10 euros, buddy. The Sharon on the coast, the Jezreel Valley, and the Upper Jordan Valley. The bulk of the proposed Jewish state's territory, however, consisted of the Negev Desert, which was not suitable for agriculture nor for urban development at that time. The Jewish state would also be given sole access to the Sea of Galilee, crucial for its water supply, and the economically important Red Sea. The committee voted for the plan 25-13 on the 25th of November 1947, and the General Assembly was called back into a special session to vote on the proposal. Various sources noted that this was 1 vote short of the 2/3 majority required in the General Assembly. The 1948 Palestine War was fought on the territory of what had been, at the start of the war, British-ruled Mandatory Palestine. It is known in Israel as the War of Independence, Hebrew, aka Milchemet HaAtzamut, and in Arabic as a central component of the Nakba, or in Arabic, also known as the disaster. The Nakba, the disaster, catastrophe, or cataclysm, also known as the Palestinian catastrophe, was the 1948 displacement of a majority of the Palestinian Arabs. For every hour of note-taking, 1 league game should be played to keep us stimulated. Please stop. Known to Israel as the War of Independence, and to the Palestinians as the Nakba. It's the first war of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the broader Arab-Israeli conflict. During the war, the British terminated the mandate and withdrew, ending a period of rule which began in 1917 during the First World War. Beforehand, the area had been part of the Ottoman Empire. In May of 1948, the State of Israel was established by the Jewish Yishuv, its creation having been declared on the last day of the mandate. During the war, around 700,000 Palestinian Arabs were displaced. That's a lot of people. Yishuv denoted the body of Jewish residents in Palestine prior to the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. The term came into use in the 1880s when there were about 25,000 Jews living in that region, and continued to be used until 1948, by which time there were some 630,000 Jews there. The term is still in use to denote the pre-1948 Jewish residents in Palestine, corresponding to the southern part of Ottoman Syria until 1918. OETA South in 17 to 20, and Mandatory Palestine in 20 to 48. Okay. Is this the Nakba? A link to that? No. After the war, I'm so confused. Okay, never mind. We're going to read. Let's find out. This is like some Game of Thrones shit. How the fuck did they win this war? After the war, the former territory of the Mandate was divided among the State of Israel, which captured about 78% of it. The Kingdom of Jordan, then known as Transjordan, which captured and later annexed the area that became the West Bank, and Egypt, which captured the Gaza Strip, a coastal territory on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea, in which the Arab Leagues established the All-Palestine government. The war had two main phases, the first one being the 47-48 Civil War, which began on the 30th of November 1947, a day after the United Nations voted to adopt the Partition Plan. Partition was accepted by the Jewish leadership, but rejected by Palestinian Arab leaders and the Arab states. This phase of the war is described by historians as the civil, ethnic, or intercommunal war, as it was fought mainly between Jewish and Palestinian Arab militias supported by the Arab Liberation Army and the surrounding Arab states. Characterized by guerrilla warfare and terrorism, it escalated at the end of March 1948 when the Jews went on the offensive and concluded with their defeating the Palestinians in major campaigns and battles, establishing clear front lines. During this period, the British still maintained a declining rule over Palestine and occasionally intervened in the violence. Palestine. When was the day of... When did they declare independence? Was there like a day for this? On the last event, it would have been in May of 1948. Okay. Let's see. War had two main phases. The first began on November. God, the American way of writing dates is so much better. November 30th, 1947. Superior. First phase mainly fought between Jewish and Palestinian Arab militias, supported by the Arab Liberation Army and the surrounding Arab states. Escalated at the end of March 1948, the Jews went on the offensive. The British terminated the mandate at midnight at the end of the 14th of May 1948. On that day, the last remaining British troops and personnel departed the city of Haifa, and the Jewish leadership in Palestine declared the establishment of the State of Israel. May 14th, 1948, the last British troops and personnel... I should just do administrators. Whatever. Personnel departed Haifa, and the Jewish leadership declared the establishment of the State of Israel. This was followed the next day by the invasion of Palestine by the surrounding Arab armies and expeditionary forces? Expeditionary, right? Yeah, forces. The invasion marked the beginning of the second phase of the war. Second phase of the war began in May of 1948, the Arab-Israeli War. The invasion marked the beginning of the second phase of the war, the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. Invasion happens after Jewish leadership declares independence. Can you explain to chat that just copying someone else's notes doesn't help you learn? Yeah, I don't know why you want. I don't even think I'm a particularly good note taker. The only part of the note taking process that helps me, like, I'll probably never read these again, or maybe I will if I need to reference something. important. The only reason why taking notes helps me learn is because I've got to read the material, and then I have to understand the material well enough to pull a couple of vital pieces of information out. And that process of reading something and understanding what's important and what's not important is usually what helps me learn things. So I'll try to like write down like bullet points to make sure kind of I'm understanding like roughly what I'm reading. That's it. But there are entire books if you want. I think on Amazon, there's like there are actual books you can buy on how to take good notes. I don't think I'm a particularly good note taker. If I had to guess, my note taking abilities are probably worse than average in terms of like taking notes. Yeah, there's like a whole theory to taking effective notes. So yeah, I don't. You should never want it to be copying my notes. Okay, Jesus. The Egyptians advanced on the southern coastal strip and were halted near Ashdod. The Jordanian Arab Legion and Iraqi forces captured the central highlands of Palestine. Syria and Lebanon fought several skirmishes with the Israeli forces in the north. The Jewish militias organized into the Israeli Defense Forces managed to halt the Arab forces. When this says the Egyptians advanced in the southern coast and were halted near Ashdod, they were stopped by the Israel Defense Force? And Jordanian Arab Legion and Iraqi forces captured the central highlands of Palestine. Syria and Lebanon fought several skirmishes with the Israeli forces in the north. The Jewish militias organized into the Israel Defense Forces managed to halt the Arab forces. The following months saw fierce fighting between the IDF and the Arab armies, which were slowly being pushed back. The Jordanian and Iraqi armies managed to maintain control over most of the central highlands of Palestine and capture East Jerusalem, including the Old City. Egypt's occupation zone was limited to the Gaza Strip and a small pocket surrounded by Israeli forces at Al-Fallujah. Fallujah? Okay. This is a bit off the Gaza Strip, I think. In October and December of 1948, Israeli forces crossed into Lebanese territory and pushed into Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, encircling the Egyptian forces near Gaza City. The last military activity happened in March of 1949 when Israeli forces captured the Negev Desert and reached the Red Sea. In 1949, Israel signed separate armistices with Egypt on the 24th of February, Lebanon on the 23rd of March, Transjordan, and Syria. During this period, the flight and expulsion of the Palestinian Arabs continued. What were the Palestinian Arabs doing this whole time? What, were they just like chilling, watching everything happening? Wait, what the fuck happened? Or Sinai? Sorry, it's not Sinai, it's Sinai. During the war, around 700,000 Palestinian Arabs were displaced and most of the urban areas were destroyed. Many Palestinian Arabs ended up stateless, displaced either to the Palestinian territories captured by Egypt and Jordan or to the surrounding Arab states. Many of them, as well as their descendants, remained stateless and in refugee camps. In the last 3 years following the war, about 700,000 Jews immigrated to Israel from Europe and Arab lands, with 1/3 of them having been left or expelled from their countries of residence in the Middle East. These refugees were absorbed into Israel in the 1 million plan. Jesus fuck. It's like we're gathering power. Okay, give me numbers on this. Because, like, my understanding is there's, like, what, a couple 100,000 Jews at this point in time in all of Palestine? How many Jews were there? Or Israelis, I guess. Oh my god. Like, yeah, what's going on here? So these are the military forces, 10,000 initially, rising to 115,000 by March. Arabs had 2,000 initially, rising to 70,000. Oh, so they were outnumbered. Of which Egypt had 10,000 initially, Iraq had 3,000, rising to 15,000, 18,000, Syria 2,500 to 5,000, Transjordan 8,000 to 12,000, Lebanon at 1,000, Saudi Arabia 800 to 1,200, Arab Liberation Army 3,500 to 6,000. Jordanian and Iraqi armies maintained control over most of the central highlands of Palestine and captured East Jerusalem. Egypt occupied the Gaza Strip. Or wait, can I see, is there a map that shows me the borders of everybody after this conflict ended? I would be curious to see like what it looked like immediately after. Israel after the 1949 armistice agreements. Okay, let's check. Does that seem to care about YouTube chat? No. Oh, okay. Territorial changes. The 1949. In 1949, Israel signed separate armistice agreements with Egypt, Lesbian, Jordan, and Syria. So Egypt finally consented to talks. Next began the Greek island of Rhodes on the 12th of January, shortly after their... Oh, here's a question. I'm just curious. Has it ever happened in history? You know how like the military leaders or the diplomats go to like talk to each other and they're like, oh, like let's make an agreement for, what's going to happen. Has anybody ever done that and then they just like kill the people that show up? Besides like the movie 300? Or is it like, has it been so integral to like world military functioning that like everybody kind of respects each other's duders? Yes, a million times. No, that would be retarded. That would get you blacklisted. The movie Braveheart had happened. Mexico and the Zapatistas. The Red Wedding in Game of Thrones. Happened in Romania by the king when his government wouldn't fight the Nazis. Okay. Israel demanded that Egypt withdraw all its forces from the former area of Mandate Palestine. Egypt said the Air Force would withdraw the positions which they held on. The deadline culminated with the murder of Hassan al-Banna, a leader of the Islamist group, the Muslim Brotherhood. Israel threatened to abandon the talks, but the United States appealed to the parties to bring them to a successful conclusion. February 24th, the Israel-Egypt Armistice Agreement was signed in Rhodes. The main points of the Armistice Agreement were: the Armistice demarcation line is not to be construed in any sense as a political or territorial boundary and is delineated without prejudice to rights, claims, and positions of either party to the armistice as regards ultimate settlement of the Palestine question. The Armistice demarcation line was drawn for the most part along the 1922 international border between Egypt and Mandatory Palestine, except near the Mediterranean Sea, where Egypt remained in control of a strip of land along the coast, which became known as the Gaza Strip. Occupying the Gaza Strip, the Egyptian forces besieged in the Fallujah pocket were allowed to return to Egypt with their weapons, and the area was handed over to Israeli military control. The zone on both sides of the border around Uja al-Hafir was to be demilitarized, became the seat of the Bilateral Armistice Committee. Okay, so Egypt basically got fuck all except for, what, the Gaza Strip? And then there's like a neutral zone. Is that basically all they got? Or is there like a little territory here they got? It's pronounced armistice. Armistice, not armistice. Sorry, armistice. And had a demilitarized zone around Uja al-Hafir. Yeah, most of that area is like desert anyway, which sucks. Okay, let's fuck this. Okay, Egypt had this. Okay, with Lebanon. Provisions of this agreement being dictated exclusively by military considerations, the armistice line, the Green Line, was drawn along the international boundary between Lebanon and Mandatory Palestine. Israel withdrew its forces from 13 villages in Lebanese territory, which were occupied during the war. Lebanon agreed to international boundary between Lebanon and mandatory Palestine with Jordan. These armistice talks began on the 4th of March and were conducted on Jordanian territory despite the insistence by Ralph Bunche that in all 4 talks the ceasefire be strictly observed. While negotiating with Jordan, Israel engaged in military operations to occupy extensive swaths of territory in both the central and southern Negev desert. It also managed to secure further land by using the threat of military intervention unless some claims were accepted. The agreement with Jordan was signed on the 3rd of April, 1949. The main points: no provision of this agreement shall in any way prejudice the rights, claims, and positions of either party. Here too, and the ultimate peaceful settlement of the Palestine question, the provisions of this agreement being dictated exclusively by military considerations. What does this mean when it says this? Does it basically mean that, like, we're settling disputes between ourselves, but it doesn't go to answering anything relating to the Palestinian dispute, essentially? Jordanian forces remained in most positions held by them, particularly East Jerusalem, which included the Old City. Jordanian forces remained in East Jerusalem. And other positions held by them. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but okay. Jordan withdrew its forces from their front posts overlooking the plain of Sharon. In return, Israel agreed to allow Jordanian forces to take over positions previously held by Iraqi forces. Exchange of territorial control. Israel received control in the area known as Wadi Ara and the Little Triangle in exchange for territory in the southern hills of Hebron. Lebron? In March of 1949, as the Iraqi forces withdrew from Palestine and handed over their positions to the smaller Jordanian Legion, 3 Israeli brigades maneuvered into positions of advantage. Was in a secret agreement reached on 23rd of March 1949, incorporated the General Armistice Agreement. The green line was then redrawn in blue ink on the southern map to give the impression that a shift of the green line had been made. The events that led to a change in the green line was an exchange of fertile land in the Bethlehem area to Israeli control in the village of Wadi Funkin, being given to Jordanian control. 15th of July, when the Israeli army expelled the population of Wadi Fukin after the village had been transferred to the Israeli command of the turns on. Okay, all right. Oh, with Syria. Armistice talks with Syria started at Gesher Bnat Yaakov on the River Jordan in April of 1949 after the other armistice agreements had been concluded. The agreement with Syria was signed on the 20th of July 1949. Syria withdrew its force from most territories controlled west of the international border, which became demilitarized zones. The territory retained by Syria that lay west of the 1923 Palestinian Mandate border, which had been allocated to the Jewish state under the UN partition plan, comprised 66 square kilometers in the Jordan Valley. Syria maintained 66 square kilometers. In the Jordan Valley, I guess. Designated as DMZs. Remained under Syrian control. It was emphasized that the armistice line was not to be interpreted as having any relation whatsoever to ultimate territorial arrangements. So what does that mean when they say no relation to ultimate territorial arrangements? That what, we can like come back at a later date and figure shit out? It's just an armistice just means like we're going to stop fighting for now and then we'll figure out like how to sort this territory out once we've kind of chilled. Wasn't meant to be a political border. And let's see, Iraq, whose forces took an active part in the war, although it has no common border with Israel, withdrew its forces from the region in March 1949. The front occupied by Iraqi forces was covered by the armistice agreements between Israel and Jordan. There was no separate agreement with Iraq. Iraq had no formal agreement as they withdrew their forces. The new military frontiers for Israel set by the agreements encompassed about 70% of mandatory Palestine as it stood. The new military borders as set by the agreements encompassed about 78% of mandatory Palestine. That's a pretty big gain from where they started at. Why was Transjordan called, or why was Jordan called Transjordan initially? Was there, I don't know, okay. An Arab-populated area. The Arab population was not controlled by Israel prior to 67, where the Jordanian ruled West Bank. I don't know, okay. They identified as Israel. Good one. Because it crossed the Jordan Sea unironically. Transjordan. Okay, so this is for the armistice agreements. The armistice agreements, sorry. Okay, so I believe that this is what it looked like. Okay. To establish these temporary military borders. There's not a link thing, seriously?
I am worried. And I ought not to worry. But because I can't stop worrying, I'm worried because I worry. And you see where that can lead to. That is what we call anxiety. No amount of anxiety makes any difference to anything that's there.
Okay, back to the war. The 1948 war came as the culmination of 30 years of friction between Jews and Arabs during the period of British rule of Palestine when, under the terms of the League of Nations mandate held by the British, conditions intended to lead to the creation of a Jewish national home in the area were created. What I'm mainly curious about is what was the Palestinian fighting force? Is it just Arabs? No, that's not. No, this is everybody. The Arab Liberation Army was 3,500 to 6,000 strong. How could 1 million people only produce such a small army? All right, well. Zionism formed in Europe as the national movement of the Jewish people. For the Arab countries, this was an opportunistic land grab. For Israel, it was an existential war of survival. The amount of soldiers used reflects that. But it's an existential war of survival for the Palestinian people as well, right, Mike? Like they felt like they had rights to their land and they wanted their land, right? Like during the Arab revolt in Palestine, like they were revolting here. In the second part of this movement, there was violent conflict between the British Army, Palestinian police forces, against like peasants and stuff. Like 5,000 dead. They lost more people almost in the 36 to 39 Arab revolts when it was the British mandate versus like the entire war here against Israel trying to take everything. I just don't understand. But I don't know. We'll read. We'll find out what happened. It's a plot hole.
Hey.
Hi, what's up? Hello?
Hey.
Hi, what's up?
I've been dropping in and out as I've been working, and I saw you got stuck on a thing.
Well, I'm not stuck. I mean, I imagine the answer is going to be in this article below, but you can talk to me if you want. What's up?
About why the Palestinians were so militarily shit. After the Arab revolt, a lot of Palestinian militia groups were disarmed by the British, and their leaders were fucked off to other countries. That's why they were very unprepared for 48.
Sure, but like the sheer numbers. How many Palestinians lived here? It must have been over, what, 1, 2, 3 million? Or how many Palestinians lived? Yeah,
but they didn't have a state. They didn't have people giving them arms and shit like that. Or they were just...
Did Egypt have people? Did Israel have people giving them arms?
Well, Israel... So, in the Second World War, Jewish people were fighting alongside the British, right? And they were given arms then. And I think because of... I don't know why. I guess just general preferential treatment by the British. Jewish terror groups from the kind of early 40s were just not treated as punitively as the Palestinian militants were in the mandate period. So they just had a lot more strength by the time of 48 than the Palestinians did.
Huh.
That's why I get kind of frustrated when people say this thing about like 750,000 people displaced, but they're like, oh, but you rejected the partition, you started a war and all that. It's like, well, nah, most of these hundreds of thousands of people were like farmers, right?
I mean, I
So-
guess, but it just seems like a lot of people. But then it also seems like, let's say that is the case, that they're all just like farmers and they literally have no desire whatsoever to fight for any sort of territory. Because also it's my understanding historically, there has never been, there was no Palestinian nation until like, what, the fucking 1980s or something, right? Like, at no point in all of history, I think, prior to this, were the Palestinian people ever their own independent nation, were they?
No.
So, and obviously I have the benefit of looking at this in hindsight, but it feels like they really should have accepted, like so far in my research, I've come across 2 points where they probably should have accepted a delineation of borders. This 1939 white paper, and then,
Yeah.
like, I don't know
the
why
39 white paper, was that not rejected by the Zionists?
it was rejected by both people.
Yeah, okay. So,
But it might have been the
you're
case.
saying-
It might have been the case that that if the Arabs would have pushed to accept it. Did you go to the package room?
Yep.
And they said nothing?
Yep.
Fuck me, dude. Love you. Bye. I feel like if the Arabs would have accepted it, though, maybe there would have been more push from the British people to force the Jewish settlers to accept it. Maybe no.
There's a couple of problems. One is, like, you already mentioned it, it's hindsight, right? But the other one is Palestinian leadership was pretty bad and like very unaccountable as well, because I think a lot of them were appointed through a feudal system almost, so they weren't very well represented. And like you said, that Al Husseini guy, like that guy was basically like a Nazi lover.
Sure.
He was like telling the Hitler how much he loved the idea of doing like the Holocaust and shit, because it would be better than bringing them to fucking Palestine.
Sure.
But I think also when you're looking at the time, they came out of the Ottoman Empire expecting, like the other countries that came under British rule, to just get a country at the end, right? But for them, it was different because Britain was also promising land to Jewish people who were just coming in as like an influx. So they go from being 6% of the population to 20 to 30. And then that 30% of the population is offered, what, like 50% of the land? So, yeah, I think at the time, the frustration is like, it makes sense, but also like it's hard to tell exactly what all the Palestinians wanted because they were not democratically represented.
I guess it's once strange to me, and again, obviously hindsight. Like in 39, they reject that white paper. You know, there's 10 more years before the mandated territory is over. What do they think is going to happen at the end of the mandate?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they think they're going to get help from the Arab countries and win, right? Yeah, that's what they thought.
But then they didn't
Because-
do anything. Like, get help implies that they're going to do something too, right? Like, I don't know.
Well,
Maybe I'm
yeah,
just
there,
being
there
brilliant.
were Palestinian militant groups, so they just didn't have that much access to arms. That's the thing. To the point that, you know how on October 7th, Hamas grabbed a few towns and held onto them for a few hours?
Sure.
That's the first time Palestinian militants have ever done that.
Okay.
They've never, not even in 48, not even before, they've never been able to capture territory and hold on to it for any period of time. So, yeah, I think it's just a combination of like very unaccountable leadership and also like, I guess, hindsight. But also at the time, even before 48, the way that Jewish people were taking land in Palestine was probably like, you wouldn't really accept it by today's standards, you know, like the fact that they could just buy up land from foreign wealthy landowners, and that land often consisted of like tenant farm land, like these people who lived there were tenant farmers, and a lot of these original Jewish groups would buy up the land, and then they would have a new policy saying we're only going to hire Jewish workers, so they would just evict the tenants. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess at the time it obviously would have made sense, same as like two-state solutions would have made sense, but yeah, just hindsight and bad leadership, I would say.
Okay. Well, I'll keep on going.
Yeah, take care, sir. Bye-bye.
I love you. Be careful, babe.